government that serves you, your family, and your country, and that's going to happen. Hillary Clinton represents insiders. She represents the donors, the politicians, the big banks, the multinational corporations, and everybody getting rich off a very rigged system, and we know that. She represents everyone responsible for the decades-long squeezing of the middle class. The middle class in this country has been treated so unfairly as jobs and wealth move to other countries. Hillary Clinton is the chief emissary for globalism. And I'm not running to be president of the world. I'm running to be president of the United States. Hillary is all of a sudden going to get tough. The debate comes and she'll say, I want strong borders. I believe she mentioned the term extreme vetting. Where did you hear extreme vetting before? Only from me. Because I made up the term. I mean, I came up, I said, we need extreme vetting to come into our country. All of a sudden, she's got extreme vetting, and she's got all of these terms. Folks, it's not going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen is because they're special interest donors. They like it when our businesses move out because they own businesses. They move to Mexico. Lots of advantages for them to do that. No advantage for our country, no advantage for our jobs.
And here with reaction, the editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio host Laura Ingraham, and Fox News contributor, also a nationally syndicated radio host, Herman Cain. Look at this. If you go back 18 days ago, Reuters and others were predicting a landslide for Hillary, Laura. Now, 18 days later, they show this massive surge in electoral votes for Donald Trump. It's literally 243 to 242 in the Electoral College by their estimates and the polls that back it up. What has happened and where does this go?
I think pragmatism and common sense is winning the day, and I think Hillary's health stumbles certainly didn't help her at all. The more revelations we get about her dishonesty on the private server, the graft that was taking place with the Clinton Foundation, all leads voters to conclude we've had enough, more of the same. We're sick of politics as usual. Let's change this up. Let's switch things up with a businessman who has maybe a less ideological but more pragmatic way of handling difficult problems. And I think in the end, a lot of these voters might be swinging in that direction just because of the common sense that is involved in thinking things about refugees, Sean. When we know 5 million refugees displaced from the Middle East, a lot of them because of, frankly, failed policies of this administration. And we're supposed to now take in 100,000 plus people and think it's all going to work out well. I think people are very hesitant to do that. And Trump speaking to concerns such as that. And I think that's beginning to resonate.
You know, one of the biggest areas where we've seen a jump, Herman Cain, is among black and Hispanic voters. He's now up 7 from where Mitt Romney was with Hispanic voters. One poll actually had him at 19 percentage points for black Americans voting for Trump. I'm going to be with him at a town hall, predominantly black Americans. He's been to black churches. He's reaching out. Polls show that Hillary's black voters are switching to Trump. That was an article in the New York Post. Obama came out harsh yesterday, says he's personally insulted by black Americans who support Trump. Trump doing better than Romney with Hispanics. What has changed here? Is it the fact that the last 8 years have not been good to the minority community?
Absolutely. In addition to what Laura said, that's one other thing that's happening. Some people are afraid to go from Hillary to Trump, so they are undecided. But the American people are not stupid. Black people are not stupid. That's why you see a surge in those numbers, and that is a good thing. People are not believing President Obama when he says, as you showed in a previous clip, that we're safer and people are more prosperous. No, we are not. They are not stupid. They are not falling for it. And as a result, that's why you see a surge in Trump's numbers, not just nationally, but also amongst blacks and Hispanics.
Let's go to next Monday, 6 days from now, Laura. Hillary Clinton vows to come out swinging against Donald Trump. And, okay, I don't know what that means, but she says she's not going to take any insults lying down. Why do I suspect the insults are going to be coming from her?
Don't you half expect, Sean, that the Democrats are following around David Duke with a GoPro camera, hoping that he says something that's pro-Trump, because they can then put it in one of their, ad campaigns and say, oh, the KKK likes Trump. I mean, the whole thing is so obvious. For anyone who cares to spend 5 minutes thinking about this, when you don't have a record to run on, when you have no record of accomplishment, when your record is checkered with dishonesty and misrepresentations and ethical problems, then what do you have? What do you have to do? You say, well, I sat down in the Situation Room and I flew around the world and the whole world's in flames, at least in the Middle East. What does she have to say? She has to say Donald Trump is this, that, and the other thing. Donald Trump's a racist. All those things. That's
racist,
all she
sexist,
has.
misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic,
so
Islamophobic.
Sean, back to the debate. I was just going to say, Trump has to remember the great moments for Reagan in these debates when they tried to do similar things to Reagan. He was stupid. He wasn't smart. He has to be like, there you go again. I mean, is that all you have? Really? That's the debate here,
See,
Hillary?
I agree
that
with
I'm a
that.
bad person?
See, because Hillary's going to do this, and I don't think this is hard to figure out. I would anticipate this is she can't run on Libya, she can't run on Egypt, she can't run on Iraq or Iran or Afghanistan or Putin or North Korea, China. Okay, then she can't run on Obama's economic policy, which she says she's going to continue. So she can't run on honesty and trustworthiness. So what's left? Ad hominem attacks. What she said, basket of deplorables, that'll come up. The key for Trump, Herman, I think, is as she pokes and prods and aggravates and annoys and tries to piss off Trump and irritates him, she's going to try and get a reaction, get him to roll his eyes like Al Gore or get him to huff and puff. And I don't think Trump's going to fall for it. If he does, I think it'd be very foolish. He needs water off a duck's back, an impenetrable shield. Nothing she says can bother him, and he comes out a winner.
She's going to come out swinging, but the only thing that she comes out swinging with are names, name calling. And you're right. He doesn't fall for it. She's going to look very weak because he has put more substance on the table in the last several months than she has ever talked about. So, yeah, it's only up to name calling to try to provoke Trump such that he comes after her, and then the liberal media is going to try to turn it into a sexist attack. I don't think it's going to work because I don't think Trump is going to fall for it.
God forbid Donald Trump walked over like poor Rick Blasio and tried to hand the poor woman a piece of paper. The damsel in distress couldn't handle the stress of somebody getting in her space and her grill a little bit, which I thought was absurd. All right, you agree, Laura? I mean, is that the biggest challenge? Beyond that, I would think that with all the speeches and interviews Trump has done, he doesn't really need a lot of prep. I think to cram his brain with facts and figures would be a bad strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah, the gotcha questions. You know what I would say when they start pulling the gotcha questions? Well, the Secretary of Defense of Poland, Donald, you know who that is, right? I mean, he needs to say something like, look, I'm sure Hillary knows all the names of all the government officials of every country on the planet. Because, frankly, she was probably flying around on our dime asking them for donations to Clinton Foundation. But what I know is I know solutions, okay? She knows all the minutia that I can learn with my top staff and all the focus we're going to have. I'm going to solve the problems for America. She can pass the pop quiz, but I'm going to pass the most important test, which is leadership and competency and delivering results for the American people. So he can't get sucked in to say, I don't know. He's not going to know all the minutia. If they try to pull the pop quiz, I think he can turn that on them really easily.
Agree with that. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. More Laura Ingraham, Herman Cain, right after this, and also coming up next tonight.
We should all understand that ultimately our world will be more secure if we are prepared to help those in need.
That's Obama at the UN earlier today, ignoring the growing Islamist threat, and actually said the world is safer than ever before. And he also was talking down the U.S. He's going out the same way he came in, and later tonight.
We must deliver a just and very harsh punishment to these people.
Donald Trump saying it's time for America to get a lot tougher with dealing with radical Islamic terrorists. Judge Jeanine Pirro, Jay Sekulow weigh in on that and much more tonight on this busy news night here on Hannity. All right, welcome back to Hannity. And during his speech to the UN General Assembly earlier today, President Obama gave himself a big pat on the back and said the world is safer than ever before. Really? That's not all. He also said that countries would be even more secure if they accommodated more refugees. Watch this.
We've taken away terrorist safe havens, strengthened the non-proliferation regime, resolved the Iranian nuclear issue through diplomacy. A quarter century after the end of the Cold War, the world is by many measures less violent and more prosperous than ever before. We have to open our hearts and do more to help refugees who are desperate for a home. We should all understand that ultimately our world will be more secure if we are prepared to help those in need and the nations who are carrying the largest burden with respect to accommodating these refugees.
All right, we continue with the editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor Laura Ingraham, as well as former presidential candidate, Fox News contributor Herman Cain. You know, Laura, what's interesting about this is front and center now, because big choices on this issue. Do we want a president that will say the words radical Islam? Trump will say it, Hillary won't. Do we want a president that will vet refugees from countries that have values that directly conflict with our constitutional values? Hillary wants a 550% increase. He wants extreme vetting. Huge difference. Also, Hillary says we need to not build walls but bridges. Trump wants to defend our borders. Hillary wants open borders. So big differences and distinctions here just on this one little issue.
Oh, it's a big issue. It's a big issue, Sean, and we now know, of course, France is building a wall to stop the spillover of refugees that might be making their way into the UK. That was reported. We know that only 36% of Americans, according to that big poll that was done in August, support allowing these refugees to enter the United States. So once again, Obama is thwarting the will of the American people in an attempt to live up to the ideals of the global community. And I think the speech at the UN today was really bizarre. I mean, it's completely out of touch with what's happening in Western Europe with the rise of the populist movements, and completely out of touch with the sentiment of the American people. I think that crosses party lines on endangering American lives by allowing people who are vetted by the UN. When even our CIA director, Sean, a few months ago, John Brennan, said the refugee population will be used by ISIS to bring
Laura,
terrorists into Western Europe and, of course, then into the United States. He said that before Congress.
By the way, not just him. Our FBI director, our assistant FBI director, our House Homeland Security Committee chair, Mike McCall, our former special envoy to defeat ISIS.
But Obama doesn't care. He does not care.
And Herman, they're willing to gamble with the lives of the American people and ignore our top intelligence officials. That, to me, is unacceptable. Now, we can have sympathy for people that are victims of a civil war, like in Syria, but what about a safe zone that Trump supports, where you provide food and safety and medicine and baby formula and cots and blankets and supplies, and then they can move back into their own country eventually? Why not that? Why is that not compassionate?
That is compassionate. The people of this country, they do care about helping those in need. Look, the comments made by President Obama simply say this. He thinks he's the president of the world when in fact he is a failed president of the United States of America. We care about helping people, but we're not going to be suckers. You know these bridges that he talks about building, and Hillary talk about building these bridges? The problem with those bridges is that they're all coming one way, over here to hurt us, to kill us, and take advantage of the generosity and the compassion that the people in this country has.
Let me play Obama. He came in apologizing for America, and he walks out apologizing for America. Boy, the radical, true to form, never grew in office, the same leftist he was coming in, the same guy going out. Watch this.
Yes, in America, there is too much money in politics, too much entrenched partisanship, too little participation by citizens, in part because of a patchwork of laws that makes it harder to vote. The United States worked with many nations to curb the excesses of capitalism. We've made our share of mistakes over these last 25 years. And I've acknowledged some. We can only realize the promise of this institution's founding to replace the ravages of war with cooperation if powerful nations, like my own, accept constraints. Surely we can rally our nations to solidarity while recognizing equal treatment for all communities, whether it's a religious minority in Myanmar or an ethnic minority in Burundi or a racial minority right here in the United States.
The only thing missing, Laura, were the terrible deeds done in the name of Christ.
Yeah, well, I think Obama, once again, really, he pushed the issue of the Prophet Muhammad cartoon today, bringing that up. I mean, he speaks very rarely about what's happened to the Christians in the Middle East. He'll speak very generally.
There's genocide. We're doing nothing.
Yeah,
genocide.
The Christian population is suffering so greatly. They've been displaced from their ancestral homeland.
And we're not taking them in.
We took in like 52 out of 11,000. That's 99-point-something% Muslim. So none of this surprises me. But you're right, Sean. You hit on the important point. Despite his track record of failure, Obama took a victory lap today at the UN, completely disassociated from reality, and having learned apparently zero in 8 years in office. He has learned nothing about this country, nothing about what concerns us, and apparently his view of the world is things are safer and more prosperous than when he came into office.
It is
maybe
pathological.
For China,
it's like a cognitive dissonance with this guy, Herman.
Yes. Look, President Obama doesn't understand two things that other countries respect us for. Donald Trump understands these things, Hillary Clinton doesn't, and Obama doesn't. Two things, our economic strength and our military strength. That's what they respect. All of this feel-good stuff does not matter to the rest of the world. This is where President Obama and Hillary Clinton get off track. And all Donald Trump is saying is, let's get back on track. Let's have our economy growing as fast as it can grow, and let's rebuild our military. That's what the rest of the world will respect, and that's what the rest of the world will respond to when we try to increase the strength of the community.
Predictions. Who's going to win the election in 49 days? Herman Cain.
Donald Trump.
Laura Ingraham.
Trump, and he's going to win states that Republicans haven't won in decades.
I hope you're both right. All right, thank you both. Coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
We must deliver a just and very harsh punishment to these people.
So after a wave of attacks here on U.S. soil, Donald Trump says we need to get a lot tougher with these terrorists. Judge Jeanine and Jay Sekulow are up next. They have reaction, and also tonight.
The schools are failing. The jobs are leaving, and millions are trapped in poverty. So to the African American community, I say, vote for Donald Trump. I will fix it. I will fix it.
Donald Trump, he continues his outreach to African American voters. We'll have a preview of our big Hannity town hall tomorrow night with the GOP nominee from Cleveland, Ohio. That and more, all coming up straight ahead.
We have caught this evil thug who planted the bombs. Thank you, law enforcement. Thank you, police. He will be represented by an outstanding lawyer. His case will go through the various court systems for years, and in the end, people will forget, and his punishment will not be what it once would have been. We must have speedy but fair trials, and we must deliver a just and very harsh punishment to these people.
Donald Trump talking about how we need to be tough on terrorists. Here now, the author of the brand new book, Unholy Alliance, The Agenda Iran, Russia, and Jihadists Share for Conquering the World. Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, and Justice with Judge Jeanine, host right here on the Fox News Channel. Welcome, both of you. Judge Jeanine Pirro. Well, that's a pretty interesting book, by the way, because I think you're right. I mean, if you look at the alliance, Iran, Russia, radical jihadists, they on two of the senses anyway, they want to advance a caliphate that's worldwide domination and Islam as the main religion, and it's convert or die. How does Putin fit into that, Jay?
Well, here's what you've got. You've got an alliance that hasn't ever existed before, and that is Russia and the Iranians are working together. You had Russia launching aircraft out of Iran into Syria, which, by the way, violates the Iranian constitution, which I have in the book Unholy Alliance. There's an interesting aspect of this, Sean, and that is, and I think Donald Trump actually got this very much correct, The Russians historically, and you go all the way back to Benjamin Disraeli, Prime Minister of Great Britain in the 1870s, said, the Russians understand power, that you don't arbitrate. They understand power. And he said, look, diplomacy can be power, but there has to be power behind it. And we're not projecting power. Thus, the Russians, the Iranians, look at our weakness, and they project their strength, and they're working together, and that's where this unholy alliance, including Syria, involved in that as well. There's a lot of different parts moving right now, but I think we're probably on the jihadist issue, the worst in our lifetime. I think this is worse than 9/11 as far as the level of this.
And Jeanine, Judge Jeanine, this has happened with Reagan. I mean, he compared himself to Carter. Carter had shown weakness. The Iranian hostage crisis, obviously the most prominent. And the world had the feeling that if Ronald Reagan won, that the world was going to change dramatically and America wouldn't be weak and timid anymore. And the world was safer as he built up our military. And the concept of peace through strength was proven to be effective.
Absolutely, and I think that's what Americans are feeling right now, and I think that's why you're seeing the polls changing dramatically, and how Donald Trump is staying strong and how he's starting to possibly turn previously blue states red. I mean, Americans are fed up with this. They're fed up with hearing the FBI knew about someone, the FBI knew that this guy was stabbed someone and the grand jury didn't indict, that nothing happens to these people. These wives disappear. We never hear about any of this ever again. And, you know, the whole justice system, the military system, Americans are disappointed. It is time for a change. I don't think we've ever been more right.
I honestly think that the issue of not saying radical Islam, Jay, and there's such a difference between Hillary and Donald Trump, the issue of vetting refugees and allowing people that come from cultures that directly clash with our Constitution, that Americans fundamentally understand that we have to know if they're coming here to become American and assimilate, or do they want to proselytize and bring their value system, which is the opposite of ours, with them. And I also think the issue of the wall. I think it's now clear to Americans that there is a clear and present danger with radical Islamists. How many more incidents do we need to prove it?
Well, I mean, look, the Israelis have utilized both, as you said earlier, they've used profiling successfully, by the way, and they have a wall. And they have a wall to protect their citizens. Now, here's the issue, Sean, that I think is front and center on this. I think you're exactly correct. I think what Judge said was also absolutely correct. And that is, if you talk to even young people, people that are just starting their families, young kids, their number one issue, the issue that they are thinking about is, can I walk down the streets of my town without worrying about a jihadist attack? Can I go through an airport not worried of looking over my shoulder that I've got to be prepared? Where are the exit ways? When I go into a movie theater, these are the things people are worried about right now. And just think about this. Look what the last 8 years of Barack Obama's leadership has done to the Middle East and to our country.
And then all the
I shudder
euphemisms.
To think what 8 more years would be.
You know, watching the governor of New York, you know, the mayor of New York, Comrade Bozo de Blasio, this was an intentional act. I mean, like,
I've never heard that before. I've been in criminal justice for 30 years.
What's an intentional act?
No kidding. You think somebody who put together a pipe bomb and blew up, and that's
But they're threading this needle and they're writing this razor's edge, and it's twisted and contorted.
Playbook. It's like Benghazi was due to a video. It has nothing to do, in their opinion, with the terrorism that is coming for us. And so in order for them to protect their positions, they have to say, we're defeating it, and this is just a little of this and a little of that. And I got to tell you, Sean,
it sounds insane.
It is insane. It's insanity.
It is.
But when we've got these guys beating their wives, you've got domestic violence, you've got them hating gays, and we are bringing them to this country. We think they're going to assimilate. They are not. And what we've got to do is they've got to lose their citizenship.
This is a clash of cultures.
Exactly.
And we either want to be a constitutional republic or we don't. And if you're coming from a country that said, if I was married to you, I could tell you how to dress, tell you whether you can go to work or school. You can't drive a car.
Right.
By the way, gays and lesbians get killed. Christians and Jews get persecuted. But Hillary takes money from those countries. Tens of millions.
Okay, she doesn't believe in the Constitution. She doesn't believe in the First Amendment. Look at UN Resolution 1618, where they can limit your speech about someone's religion. Obama, maybe his last speech at the UN, but he started by saying, you know, no one who criticizes the Islam should be allowed to be a leader of the future, whatever that line was. And what we've got are people who hate us, and we let them in. We're suckers.
You know what? I can see a 9/11-like commission report after the next big attack, Jay. And And you know what they're going to mention? They're going to mention New York. And they're going to mention New Jersey and San Bernardino and Chattanooga and Fort Hood and Orlando. And they're going to say they were at war with us. We weren't at war with them again. We're making the same mistakes we made in the lead up to 9/11/01. We have a pre-9/11 mindset under Obama and Hillary.
And Sean, we've got the paradigm is absolutely backwards. The president and his administration starts with the proposition that these are not acts of terrorism, these are intentional acts, no kidding, by the way, but they're not acts of terrorism, prove that it is. It needs to be turned around. When these incidents happen, a bomb going off in New York, assume it is terrorism, and then work the facts. That's how you have to do this. But the entire paradigm has to shift. And until we acknowledge, and I say this in the book on Holy Alliance, until we acknowledge that we're at war with radical jihadists, the fact of the matter is we will lose this war. We can win it, but we've got to have the will to take it on and call it what it is. These are radical jihadists.
Guys, good to see you both. Appreciate it. Up next tonight here on Hannity.
The schools are failing. The jobs are leaving, and millions are trapped in poverty. So to the African American community, I say, vote for Donald Trump. I will fix it. I will fix it.
Donald Trump, he continues his outreach to African-American voters. Up next, we're going to have a preview of our town hall with the GOP nominee tomorrow night in Cleveland, Ohio. You don't want to miss that. Stay with us.
We're going to rebuild our country. Our infrastructure is a disaster. Our country is a mess with $20 trillion in debt. Think of it, $20 trillion. At the center of the effort will be, in fact, the rebuilding of our inner cities. Nearly 4 in 10 African-American children live in poverty, including 45% of African-American children under the age of 6. Think of that. The schools are failing. The jobs are leaving, and millions are trapped in poverty. So to the African-American community, I say, vote for Donald Trump. I will fix it. I will fix it.
That was Donald Trump earlier today at a rally in North Carolina. Now, tomorrow night, I'll be in Cleveland, Ohio, with the GOP nominee doing an hour town hall focusing on issues that impact the African-American community. Now, we'll be doing that event tomorrow, and we'll have guests at the church at the Buckeye State. Joining us now is the CEO for the National Diversity Coalition for Donald Trump, the Reverend Darrell Scott. And also joining us, Senior Advisor for African-American Outreach for the Trump campaign, Amarosa, is on my show. I can't believe it.
Hi, Hannity.
You have one name. Everybody knows you as Amarosa, and Fox News contributor Roy Murdoch. Since Obama's been president, there's been a 58% increase, Black Americans on food stamps. Yeah. We have 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more Americans in poverty, a 20% increase of Black Americans out of the labor force. These are real people, real suffering, our fellow countrymen. Democrats play the race card every year. Will it work this year, Pastor?
I don't think it will. You know, Americans are not stupid, and Black Americans are not stupid. We hear Hillary, we hear Donald Trump, and what Donald Trump is saying makes more sense than what Hillary Clinton is saying. She's trying to sell us on some type of fantasy of some utopian society, while Trump assesses the world through a realistic viewpoint. And Trump is saying we have to deal with the world the way it is and not deal with things the way we wish they were. And so what happens is the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, they try to make it a personal choice rather than a political choice. And, you know, she'll say, well, women don't vote for Trump because he's a misogynist, and foreigners don't vote for him because he's a xenophobe, and blacks and minorities don't vote for him because he's a racist. But that's not working. The field is clearer now. We don't have 19 different voices to hear. There are 2 candidates left. We're able to hear what she says. We're able to hear what he says. We're able to process it. And once again, what he says makes a whole lot more sense than that crazy stuff she's talking about.
Amarosa, you're going to be joining us tomorrow. Look forward to seeing you again. And what are your thoughts on all this?
You know, I think it's important to note that the African-American community has been extremely loyal to the Democrats, but unfortunately, the Democrats have not been loyal to African-Americans. Among those statistics that you mentioned, we also saw home ownership among African-Americans drop significantly. When you look at a city like Chicago, where 60% of the young African-American men are either unemployed or not in school, we are failing the community, and Donald Trump wants to bring change to the inner city.
And he's reaching in deep. He keeps giving speeches speech after speech and black church after black church. He's saying, I want your vote. I'll fix the educational
Well, he's
system.
willing to earn it. He's not going to take the African-American community for granted, as the Democrats continue to do.
And I like that he's asking for those votes, because Republicans, frankly, in the past have not done enough outreach.
That's exactly right. Somebody asked me today, what is the secret? Why is Trump increasing his support among black voters, according to one poll, up to 19.6? And if that's true, that's just astonishing. I said it's very simple.
That was the Pew poll.
Yeah, very simple. Yeah. He's asking for black votes. That usually doesn't happen. Usually Democrats say, well, they're going to win, so we'll just blow them off.
He takes it personally as a personal insult.
Really an astonishing comment that somehow that we owe it, we're his property and we're supposed to do as our master says, or something like that. That's just appalling. And I think that Trump is doing the right thing. He's going out and asking for black votes, which is unusual. And he's doing so on very specific issues, like school choice, for example. He's very, very specific about school choice. He wants to have a block grant program to give states, I believe it's $20 billion that they can use for school choice initiatives. And you look at Hillary Trump, and she's completely a tool of the teachers union.
And coming up, in the wake of the terror attacks this past weekend, is it time to start surveillance like they had in New York up to 2014 in some mosques here in the U.S. looking for radical Islamists? You think that's smart? We'll speak with two imams. That's straight ahead.
Our local police, they know who a lot of these people are. They're afraid to do anything about it because they don't want to be accused of profiling, and they don't want to be accused of all sorts of things. You know, in Israel, they profile. They've done an unbelievable job, as good as you can do.
Sure.
But Israel has done an unbelievable job, and they'll profile. They profile. They see somebody that's suspicious, they will profile. They will take that person in. They'll check out, do we have a choice? Look what's going on. Do we really have a choice? We're trying to be so politically correct in our country, and this is only going to get worse.
That was Donald Trump yesterday reacting to recent terror attacks all across the country. Is it time for Americans to start surveilling mosques here in the U.S.? In other words, to find radical Islamists. Here with reaction from the Nurullah Islamic Center, Imam Muhammad Sadiq, and from the Islamic House of Wisdom, Imam Muhammad Ali Ilahi is with us, actually in studio. What are you here for, the UN?
Very good, yes.
What are you doing with the UN?
Well, some meeting with some delegations. Probably we can meet with President Rouhani of Iran tonight.
You want to meet with President Rouhani?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
The #1 state sponsor of terror is Iran. #1 state sponsor of terror.
When was that? Is a big lie. When was...
That's a lie?
I'm not representing Iran. I'm not a spokesman of Iran.
Let me talk to Rouhani. Tell Rouhani I want to interview him.
They are fighting ISIS. They are fighting Al-Qaeda. What about that?
No.
The only real people who are on the ground and fighting terrorism and ISIS...
The Iranians have been fomenting terror, killing Americans during the Iraq War. They have been fighting proxy wars against Israel. They have also repeatedly said that they've called for the destruction of Israel repeatedly, Rouhani and also Ahmadinejad.
Israelis are talking the same thing about the Iranians.
No, I've never heard. No, that's not true.
Is going on in the Middle East.
Name me one instance. When did Prime Minister Netanyahu call for the destruction of Iran?
You didn't hear that?
No, don't talk over me. When has I have heard Ahmadinejad and Rouhani both call for the destruction of Israel? Name me one instance where Prime Minister Netanyahu ever called for the destruction of Iran. Name one time.
Well, you know,
once.
When was the Rouhani who asked for destruction of any country?
They said it repeatedly. They burn American flags. They burn Israeli flags. They chant death to America.
I'm talking...
Chant death to America in Iran.
I'm talking about the president who is a man of wisdom, man of peace, man of rationality.
Am I supposed to laugh now?
We are going to meet with him tonight.
Laugh at this?
And he is meeting with some Muslim leaders.
You tell Rouhani I want to talk to him.
You know, he is the one who brought this resolution in the United Nations just last time against terrorism and extremism. What about that? You know, Sean, 2 months ago, when I called you and your office, I said 3,000 of us Muslim community in the United States, we are in front of the Saudi embassy demonstrating against ISIS and marching from Saudi embassy to the White House. And I said, we are saying Saudi and ISIS are the same. The only difference is the name. None of you guys
I'm
came.
not a fan of the Saudis. I criticize Saudi Arabia. By the way, let me ask this, and then we'll get to Imam Sadiq. Why is it that under Islam, and I don't care if it's Shia or Sunni, that they kill gays and lesbians in Iran? They kill them. They
Who said that?
Because they do. There was a
Maybe
recent article 2 weeks ago. They killed a gay guy. Now, let me add one other thing.
They follow the Bible, because Bible,
you feel you have a right to tell women how to dress. In Saudi Arabia, women can't drive. Christians and Jews, are you allowed to build a Jewish temple in Iran?
Of course.
Really?
They have their representative, even the parliament, the Jewish community. More than 40,000 Jews live in Iran, and they have very friendly relationships
in Saudi
with
Arabia,
the
you can't build
Iranian.
Let me go to Imam Sadiq. Imam Sadiq, welcome back to the program. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you, Sean, for honoring me to come back and,
you're very
listen
honored.
to your dialogue.
Why is it that we don't have radical Catholics and radical Jews, and we don't have? Why is it in America and the world? Why do we keep facing radical Islamists? Is it because of is it a direct interpretation of the Quran that says take neither Christians or Jews for your friends, and talks a lot about jihad, holy war, and infidels?
No, it's because evidently somebody's reading the stats wrong. Have you seen the stats where there's more extremists and terrorists among the Jews than among the Muslims, according to the FBI report? According to the FBI report.
The what
right
report?
Here, FBI report from Princeton University, 6% for Muslims, 7% for Jews.
I have no idea to which you refer. I will say this, the greater victims of hate crimes in America are Jewish Americans, not Muslim Americans.
Well, I'm not trying to say who gets what. I'm just trying to tell you these are the stats.
Let me hear you say this. I don't hear you saying radical Islamists are hijacking your religion. Why won't you say that? Are they?
Because there's no such thing as radical.
In the name of your prophet, they're told they get 72 virgins when they kill innocent men, women, and children.
That's not
propaganda, Islamophobia, Sean. Come on, that's not
Islamophobia.
True. Islamophobia.
Is that not promised by jihadists? Aren't promised 72 virgins?
Well, you know, all of us,
that's not
Muslim
in the
community.
Now, who's he going to talk to? Me or I don't want to talk over, but that's not in the Quran.
All right.
There's no such thing.
Okay, but that's what they're promised. That's just a fact.
No, they're not promised that. They're not promised that. See, Sean, what we need to do, I keep trying to tell you, let's you and I sit down, have some coffee, and have a one-on-one.
Let's have
so
a
we
beer.
can at least bring this stuff up to date.
You
don't drink beer?
No, I
Are
can't
you going to impose your idea, Sean, on somebody who doesn't want to drink beer? You can drink.
You never had a beer in your life?
You cannot impose it on me.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
I never
before
had
I
it.
became
I offered a beer. I'm offering. We sit down and have a beer. I drink
tea
enough
and
coffee.
is something that both
you
of
can
us
drink
agree,
the
not
beer.
beer.
All right, I got to let you both go.
You drink the beer, Sean.
When we come back, we need your help. Our question of the day, a very important one, is straight ahead.